I am Julia, 31 years old, and I never imagined my own sister-in-law would call me greedy after demanding half of what my parents left me. One dinner table conversation. One word. That was enough to stain me in front of relatives who had always seen me as the responsible one. Before I continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and subscribe if you believe inheritance should mean respect, not manipulation. I live in Seattle working as a financial analyst. My parents weren't wealthy, but they built a life with care. A small house with cedar floors Dad polished every spring, a savings account they guarded like treasure, and a lakeside plot of land they dreamed of turning into a retirement cabin. When they passed last year, first Dad, then Mom, the will was simple. Everything split between me and my brother, Marcus. Marcus is 34, married to Claire. Outwardly, she's graceful, always with the perfect outfit, the practiced smile at church socials. But behind that polish is calculation. She measures every favor, every compliment, like an investor calculating return. I had sensed it before, but I never thought she'd reach into my parents' will. The house isn't grand. White shutters, lilac bushes Mom planted, creaky stair rails worn smooth by decades of hands. To me, it's not just property. It's my childhood in brick and wood. So when Claire leaned forward at the table 2 weeks after Mom's funeral and said, "We think half of Marcus's share should also come to me. You're single, Julia. You don't need it like we do." My stomach dropped. Marcus avoided my eyes, staring at his plate. And Claire, perfectly composed, added with a sweet smile, "If you refuse, don't be surprised if everyone thinks you're selfish." I froze, the fork in my hand hovering above the plate. Claire's words echoed like a verdict, and the silence that followed was heavy enough to crush me. Around the table, I could see my aunt glance down at her napkin, my cousin clear his throat, as if suddenly remembering he had somewhere else to be. No one spoke up. No one defended me. "Claire," I managed, my voice tight, "the will is clear. Half to Marcus, half to me. That's what Mom and Dad wanted." Her smile didn't waver. "Wills can be interpreted, Julia. Families adjust things all the time to match circumstances." She placed her manicured hand over Marcus's, like sealing a deal. "We have 2 children to raise, college funds to plan. You're single, with no dependents. Surely you can see it's only fair. The words scraped against my skin. My parents hadn't written fairness by head count. They'd written equality. Their intention was simple. And yet here was Claire, twisting grief into opportunity. I looked to Marcus, praying for him to speak, to set the record straight. His eyes slid away, landing on the salt shaker. He muttered, "Maybe we should talk about this later." Later. In my experience, later meant never. The meal resumed, if you could call it that. Plates clinked, chairs creaked, but conversation was hollow. Every bite of roasted chicken turned to sawdust in my mouth. When dessert came out, a lemon tart Mom had taught me to make, the taste only reminded me of what we had already lost. Afterward, as coats were gathered and goodbyes exchanged, Claire leaned close to my ear. Her perfume was sharp, cloying. "If you insist on keeping everything, Julia," she whispered, "don't expect the family to see you the same way. No one likes a greedy woman." Her words landed like a dagger, subtle enough to go unnoticed by others, sharp enough to draw blood only I could feel. I drove home with my hands clenched on the steering wheel, the night pressing in around me, and I realized something that chilled me more than her demand. Claire wasn't just after money, she was after reputation. If she could paint me as selfish, then any defense I made would sound like guilt. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every silence. I had inherited more than property. I had inherited a battle. The whispers began within days. At first, it was a cousin's text that struck me as odd. "Hey, I'm sure things are complicated with the will. Hope you're not being too hard on Marcus and Claire. I hadn't said a word to anyone." So how did she know? Then came the Facebook posts, subtle but sharp. Claire shared a quote about greed tearing families apart, with a row of sad face emojis. The comments filled with sympathy. Stay strong, Claire. Family money changes people. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Everyone knew who the greedy sibling was supposed to be. At Sunday dinner the following week, the atmosphere was thick. My uncle asked Marcus in front of everyone, "So, what's the plan with the house?" Seems unfair for Julia to keep such a big place all to herself. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but Claire jumped in, her voice sweet as honey. "We only want what's right." Julia's always had so much freedom. It's time she thought of others. Laughter followed, but it was the uneasy kind, as if no one wanted to pick sides openly. Still, I could feel the tide turning. Every glance across the table carried a question I hadn't been asked directly. Why won't you share? Driving home that night, my chest ached with a pressure I couldn't release. I had been careful my entire life, studying hard, building a career, caring for my parents when their health failed. And now, the story Claire was weaving threatened to erase all of that with one poisonous word: greedy. I tried speaking to Marcus privately. "This isn't just about the money, Marcus. She's making me out to be the villain." He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Claire just wants security for the kids. Maybe if you offered a portion, just to ease the tension, people would see you differently." My jaw dropped. "So the solution is to buy back my own reputation with the inheritance Mom and Dad meant for me?" He didn't answer. His silence was worse than words. That night, I realized I was fighting not just for property, but for my parents' intent. And for my own name. If I let Claire rewrite the narrative, I'd lose more than money. I'd lose the truth of who I was to this family. And deep down, I knew she was only getting started. 2 weeks later, Aunt Marjorie hosted a family potluck. Normally, these gatherings were comforting, kids running in the yard, casseroles steaming on the table, the kind of noise that dulled grief for a few hours. But this time, every smile aimed at me felt tight, rehearsed, like people were bracing for a show. Halfway through dinner, the show began. Marjorie cleared her throat and said, "Julia, we've been talking. Don't you think it would be generous to give Marcus and Claire a little more than half? They've got responsibilities you don't." My fork clattered against my plate. "Excuse me?" Claire leaned in, voice soft but caring. "We're not asking for luxury, Julia. Just fairness. Everyone sees you holding on so tightly, and it breaks my heart that people have to think of you as selfish." The word landed with a practiced weight. "Selfish." I scanned the table. Nobody spoke up. My cousin stared at her mashed potatoes. My uncle fiddled with his watch. Even Marjorie nodded faintly as if Claire's version of events had already been accepted as fact. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What's selfish," I said slowly, "is twisting Mom and Dad's will. They wanted equality, that's the truth. And Claire," I locked eyes with her, "you know it." For a flicker of a second, her smile cracked, but then she pressed her hand to her chest, feigning injury. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of lying, Julia. After everything we've done for family." Her eyes shimmered with manufactured tears, and the room leaned toward her sympathy like metal to a magnet. Marcus cleared his throat, finally speaking. "Maybe Julia just needs time to realize what's fair." Fair. That cursed word again. Heat rose in my chest. Fair. While I sat with Mom through chemo, while I paid Dad's hospital bills out of my own savings. Fair is honoring their wishes, not rewriting them because it's convenient for your wife. The air froze. Someone gasped. Marcus's face darkened, and Claire dabbed at the corner of her eye with a napkin, whispering just loud enough. "See? Angry, greedy, always playing the victim." And in that moment, I realized, if I didn't find a way to prove her manipulation, the entire family would swallow her story whole. That night, I couldn't shake the look on Claire's face, the way she cried on cue, the way the room bent to her version of reality. Words alone wouldn't save me. If I wanted to protect what my parents left, I needed proof. I dug through my parents' filing cabinet, the one I'd stored in my apartment after the funeral. It smelled faintly of cedar and dust. Inside, I found their handwritten notes, copies of the will, and even the receipts from when they refinanced the house years ago. Every document reinforced one truth: equal shares, no exceptions. I highlighted the passages and placed them in a neat folder. But paper alone wasn't enough. Claire thrived on performance. If I wanted to counter her, I had to show her pattern. So I started writing. Page after page, I listed every moment she'd pushed her advantage, the time she borrowed Mom's jewelry for a party and never returned it, the vacation money she convinced Marcus to use from Dad's account, the whispers she spread that I was too career-focused to care for family. Each memory felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. Still, I needed someone besides me to see it. The next day, I met with Mr. Harris, my parents' attorney. His office smelled of leather and old books, a space where words carried weight. I laid the folder on his desk. She's trying to twist everything. If this continues, I'll lose not just my inheritance, but my name in the family. He adjusted his glasses and flipped through the documents. Your parents' wishes are clear, Julia. Legally, you're on solid ground. But reputations, he tapped the folder, are harder to defend. You'll need to be prepared if she tries to sway opinion at a larger family meeting or, heaven forbid, in court. Court. The word chilled me, but it also gave me clarity. If Claire wanted a fight, I'd meet her where facts mattered. That evening, I called Marcus. I need you to come with me to Mr. Harris's office next week. We're going to review the will together. No more side conversations, no more whispers. He hesitated, then sighed. Julia, dragging lawyers into this will just make things uglier. It's already ugly, I said firmly. And if Claire keeps controlling the narrative, it's only going to get worse. Silence stretched. Then quietly, I'll think about it. As I hung up, I realized something. Marcus might never stand up to Claire. If I wanted the truth to survive, I had to be willing to stand alone. But not defensively. Proactively. And deep inside, a flicker of resolve lit up. I was done being cornered. The next family gathering wouldn't be another ambush, it would be my stage. The following Saturday, Aunt Marjorie insisted on hosting another family discussion. I knew what that meant. Another stage for Claire to perform, another round of veiled accusations. But this time, I walked in prepared, my parents' folder tucked firmly under my arm. The living room buzzed with low chatter as relatives filled the couches and folding chairs. Claire sat beside Marcus, her hand resting theatrically on his knee, a portrait of patient suffering. When I entered, her smile was polite, brittle. Julia, Aunt Marjorie began, we're all hoping we can settle this without unpleasantness. Surely there's a way to compromise. Claire leaned forward, voice syrup sweet. No one wants conflict. We only want what's fair. Julia's been holding on so tightly. It breaks my heart to see family divided by greed. There it was again, that word. Greed. She spoke it like a bell toll, waiting for it to reverberate through the room. Heads nodded. Whispers rose. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the folder, but my voice came steady. If we're going to talk about fairness, then let's actually look at what Mom and Dad wanted. I laid the photocopies on the coffee table, sliding them toward the circle of eyes. Equal division. Half to Marcus, half to me. No amendments, no conditions. The room grew quiet as papers shuffled from hand to hand. Claire laughed lightly, though her eyes flashed. Documents can say one thing, but family understands intent. My children need stability. Julia doesn't? Isn't it obvious? I met her gaze head on. Obvious is you twisting grief into leverage. Obvious is you whispering about me being greedy, when the only person demanding more than half is you. For a moment, the air cracked like glass. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. My cousin whispered, "She has a point." Claire's smile faltered. She reached for Marcus's arm. Are you really going to let her paint me as the villain? All eyes turned to my brother. He swallowed hard, avoiding both our stares. I don't know what to say. So I said it for him. Say this. Mom and Dad raised us to honor their word. Their word is on those pages, and I won't apologize for protecting it. The silence that followed was different this time. Not complicity, but consideration. Doubt had slipped into the room, loosening Claire's grip. Her cheeks flushed and she leaned back, eyes glittering with something colder than tears. If you think this is over, Julia, you're mistaken. I gathered the folder, my pulse steady now. You're right, it's not over, but from now on I won't be silent. The next morning my phone buzzed before I'd even had coffee. A dozen notifications lit up the screen. Texts from cousins, voicemails from an aunt, even a message from a neighbor. Claire had moved fast. On Facebook, she'd posted a photo of her children. Angelic smiles, matching sweaters with a caption dripping in martyrdom. All we want is stability for our kids. Sad that some people would rather cling to money than to family. The comments poured in. Stay strong, Claire. Greed shows people's true colors. Your kids deserve better. Not one word named me outright, but everyone knew. By afternoon, Marcus called. His voice was tight, weary. Julia, can't you just let go of part of it? Claire's at her breaking point. People are saying you're tearing the family apart. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. Marcus, she's the one twisting the story. I showed the will. The truth is on paper. Why can't you stand with me on this? He was silent for a long moment. Because Claire is my wife. I have to protect her. The words cut deeper than any accusation. Protect her, even if it meant betraying me, betraying Mom and Dad's wishes. That evening, I drove past the old house. The shutters needed paint. The lilacs wilted in the summer heat. Yet even in its tired state, the house pulsed with memory. Dad sanding the porch rails, Mom humming as she planted bulbs. Their love was woven into every board, and now it was being weaponized. I parked at the curb, tears stinging my eyes. For a moment, I almost felt like giving in, signing whatever papers Claire wanted, just to stop the smear campaign, just to breathe again. But then I remembered Mom's voice, steady even in her final months. Julia, don't let anyone tell you you're less than what you are. You fight for what matters. I wiped my eyes and pulled out my phone. If Claire wanted a battle of stories, I would tell mine, but with proof. I began drafting a post, attaching photos of the will, highlighting my parents' handwritten notes. I hesitated, thumb hovering over post. Public battles could scorch the earth, but silence was already burning me alive. And as the screen glowed in my hands, I knew the next move I made would decide whether I reclaimed my voice or let Claire own it forever. I stared at the glowing screen, my thumb frozen above post. The thought of dragging my parents' memory into a public circus made my stomach twist. But then I remembered Mom's voice from years ago. Weak but firm. Julia, truth doesn't need permission. It only needs courage, I hit publish. Within minutes, my post spread through the same circles Claire had cultivated. I wrote plainly. My parents' will was clear. Half to my brother, half to me. I've respected that. What I will not accept is being painted as greedy for honoring their wishes. Here is the proof attached were scans of the will, with Mom and Dad's signatures bold at the bottom. At first, silence. Then the comments began. Thank you for sharing this, Julia. I didn't realize, so the story wasn't what we heard. Looks like someone owes you an apology. Claire must have seen it too, because not an hour later, she fired back with her own post. A long, rambling defense about emotional intent, about how Mom had hinted she wanted the grandchildren secure, about how I was twisting legal words against family values. Her supporters rallied, but this time, the tide wasn't entirely hers. For every heart emoji, there was a raised eyebrow. For every stay strong, Claire, there was a blunt, the will is the will. That evening, Marcus showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted, eyes shadowed. "Why did you have to go public?" he asked. "Because," I said, holding his gaze, "Claire went public first. She dragged my name through the mud. I'm not going to sit back while she rewrites our parents' legacy." He rubbed his temples. "She's furious. Talking about hiring her own lawyer. If this goes to court, then let it," I cut in. "Better a courtroom than a whisper campaign. At least there, facts matter." For the first time, he didn't argue. He just slumped into the chair across from me, the fight draining out of him. That night, as I filed away copies of the will and drafted notes for Mr. Harris, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Claire wanted a battlefield of rumor and guilt. I was moving the fight to where truth had weight. And as I zipped the folder shut, I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about whether I let myself be bullied into silence or proved once and for all that I was not the greedy villain Claire needed me to be. A week later, we didn't gather in a living room, but in Mr. Harris's oak-paneled office. The air smelled of leather and ink, heavy with formality. Claire swept in first, heels clicking, Marcus trailing like a shadow. She wore a cream blazer, pearl earrings, every inch the picture of wounded dignity. I carried only my folder. Mr. Harris gestured for us to sit. "We're here to clarify the will and hopefully prevent further conflict." His tone was measured, but his eyes carried weight. He understood how deep this cut. Claire didn't waste time. "The letter of the will may say equal halves, but intent matters. My children deserve stability. Julia's unmarried. No dependents. My mother-in-law often told me she wanted her grandchildren provided for. Surely that should guide our interpretation." She said it smoothly, like rehearsed testimony. Marcus nodded faintly as if he'd heard it 100 times. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Evans, I drafted this will myself." I spoke directly with both of Julia's parents. Their words were unequivocal. Equal division between their children, nothing more, nothing less. Claire's smile thinned. With all due respect, lawyers hear what clients say. But family knows what they mean. I leaned forward, voice steady. What they meant is written in their own hand. And if you truly cared about their grandchildren, Claire, you wouldn't be draining family unity with accusations. You'd be teaching them that promises matter. For a flicker of a moment, her mask cracked, eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight. Mr. Harris slid copies of the will across the table. "If you wish to challenge this, Mrs. Evans, file a case. But know this, the court will uphold language, not speculation, and frivolous suits can carry penalties." Silence stretched. Marcus stared at the floor. Claire's nails tapped the armrest in staccato beats. Finally, she rose, purse snapping shut. "This isn't over," she hissed, sweeping toward the door. The room exhaled when she left. Marcus lingered, eyes heavy with conflict. "Julia," he said quietly, "she won't let this go. I don't know how much longer I can hold it together." I met his gaze, weary but firm. "Then you'll have to choose, Marcus, between enabling her or honoring Mom and Dad, because I won't back down." He had no answer, only silence as the door closed behind him. I gathered the papers, pulse steady. Claire's theatrics had failed in front of a lawyer, but I knew she wasn't finished, and if she came back swinging, I would be ready. Weeks later, the storm finally quieted. Claire kept her distance, posting the occasional vague quote online, but the family no longer echoed her outrage. At our next gathering, the air felt lighter. Marcus sat beside me at the dinner table, not saying much, but when he passed me the breadbasket, his hand lingered on mine. A small truce, unspoken, but real. After dessert, I walked out into the yard. The lilacs my mother planted were in bloom again, their scent carrying softly in the night air. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel crushed by grief. I felt steadied. That's when it hit me. Inheritance was never just about money. It was about the values my parents lived by: fairness, integrity, the courage to stand firm even when your own family turns against you. Those were the things they truly left me. And in protecting their wishes, I had finally honored them. Claire still refuses to speak to me. Maybe she never will. Maybe she'll always believe I'm the villain in her story. But I've stopped carrying that weight. Because in my story, the one that matters, I stood up for myself and for the truth. Do you think I was wrong to hold my ground? Should I have given Claire what she wanted just to keep the peace? I'd love to hear what you would have done in my place. And if this story spoke to you, if you've ever had to draw a hard line with family, make sure to subscribe for more stories like mine, because sometimes the hardest battles are fought not against strangers, but around our own dinner tables.